This is Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review with your NFL Week 11 preview. We're going to run down every single game on the NFL Week 11 slate, and we're going to begin with the first game on the rotation board for Sunday, November 20th. Tennessee, Indianapolis, AFC South divisional matchup. Both of these teams, believe it or not, still alive to win this division, the Titans and the Colts. Indy, hard team to figure out, aren't they? I mean, they're a team that beat Tennessee earlier this year, 34-26 on the road. Kansas City, they've inexplicably a flat, lethargic, awful performance against the Chiefs, losing 30-14, and then they beat Green Bay at Lambeau Field 31-26. Colts coming in off a bye week, so this does give them a chance get a little bit healthier, particularly on defense where they've had a lot of injuries so far this season. It looks like this will be as healthy a team on that side of the ball as they've had in quite some time. On the other side, you've got Tennessee, coming in off a win themselves against Green Bay last week, 47-25. A Tennessee Titans team that, playing better football as of late. I think if I bet this game, I would look toward Tennessee catching 3, revenge factor, losing to Indianapolis at home earlier this year. They don't want to go 0-2 against the Colts. So I would lean to the Titans here, +3 in this game. Jacksonville taking on Detroit. Detroit on a great roll. There's no denying that. It's a team that finally starting to show some signs of life, and also right in the division race once again. The Detroit Lions, also off a bye week, they beat Minnesota in overtime prior to that bye week. Now that win's not so impressive, though. I mean, we're talking about a Minnesota team that has just absolutely been stumbling down the stretch in recent games. Now they're taking on a Jacksonville team, and you say what you will about Jacksonville, but last 2 weeks against Kansas City and Houston, lose those games by 5 and 3 points. Right in those games, I am not quite sure, even though Detroit has won 4 of their last 5 games playing well. Look at the margins of victory: 6-3, 3-1. Haven't been blowing teams out. I know Detroit's the better of these two teams. I know Jacksonville's horrible. Blake Bortles continues to make critical mistakes at the worst possible times, but I don't want to lay 6.5 with Detroit. Just doesn't smell right. I worry slightly that maybe off the bye, a little bit rusty, maybe not quite sharp. So slightest of leans to Jacksonville, but I'm not touching a bet with Jacksonville here in this game, especially with Detroit on a little bit of an uptick. But my main concern, as I said with the Lions, haven't exactly been good at winning games by margin. Tampa, Kansas City, Tampa Bay played well last week, but Chicago imploded. Jay Cutler was awful. Multiple turnovers, multiple interceptions. The defense was on the field far too long, and the result was a 36-10 blowout win for the Bucs. I'm not sure they can withstand prosperity and continue it forward here for another week against the Kansas City Chiefs. But again, Kansas City's not a team that you typically trust to win by margin. That's the only issue here with Kansas City. They're not a team that really blows teams out a whole lot. Look at these wins they've had. I mean, they beat Jacksonville by 5. They beat New Orleans by 6. They beat Carolina last week by 3 in that come-from-behind victory. It's not a team that really wins games by margin a heck of a lot. But I do think Kansas City's still the better of these two teams. Just not sure I want to lay 7.5. Not a game I'm going to get involved with. Chicago and the Giants, I'm going to bet New York here in this game, laying 7.5. I have no faith in Chicago. Injuries piling up. The Alshon Jeffrey suspension really depletes an already weak receiving core. I mean, Cameron Meredith now is going to be one of your top weapons for Jay Cutler to throw the ball to. Really? I mean, that's how bad it's gotten here with this Chicago Bears offense. I don't think they're going to move the football at all. They got offensive line issues. Kyle Long, a huge injury on that offensive line last week against Tampa. They're going to miss him dearly. And that New York Giants defense, I thought, played very well against Cincinnati on Monday night. They got pressure on Andy Dalton. That defense that Giants spent a lot of money trying to upgrade in the offseason, finally starting to play well. Eli Manning made enough plays in the passing game. It still concerns me the Giants can't run the football at all. Yeah, at all, regardless of whether it's Rashad Jennings or Paul Perkins, doesn't matter. They're not running the football hardly at all with any success. That would be the one concern, but you're not going to see me recommending Chicago here. I think if you can get 7.5 in this game, laying it with the Giants, probably worth a shot. Early money on the under because we do expect maybe some nasty weather in the Meadowlands for this game. Wouldn't argue with that. I could see the Giants winning something in the 28 to 10 range, something like that. I think the Giants can win by double digits, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a high-scoring game. So lean to the Giants and also lean to the under in that game. Arizona, Minnesota. I can't lay it with Minnesota. Minnesota looks like they are just on free fall. Blair Walsh gets cut. They're throwing players under the bus. A 4-game losing streak. It just gets that feel right now that things are falling apart for the Minnesota Vikings. I can't back them, but I'm not going to trust Arizona either, going on the road on a hostile environment against, at the very least, even though they're not playing well right now, it will be a desperate Minnesota Vikings team at home, if nothing else. So it's a game I'm not going to get involved with from a side perspective. If anything, I'll lean to the under, because I don't think we'll see many points in this game, total sitting at 40. Buffalo, Cincinnati. I'm very disappointed this line is only 2.5 on Cincinnati. I was hoping Cincinnati would be laying 4.5, and I'd really have a good solid bet on Buffalo here. I'm not convinced Cincinnati's the better of these teams right now. Cincinnati to me has not been good from the beginning. They've been overvalued, overrated from the get-go. It's not the same Cincinnati team. They miss Hugh Jackson, offensive coordinator. Their defense hasn't been quite the same since Mike Zimmer left a few years ago for Minnesota. A lot of problems with this Cincinnati Bengals team right now. Marvin Lewis clearly on the hot seat as far as I'm concerned. Buffalo off a bye, and I really like the way the effort Buffalo gave Monday Night Football against Seattle. Even though they didn't win that game before their bye week, they gave it their all in that game. Should have won it. They outgained Seattle by 147 yards in Seattle. That's hard to do, but they end up losing 35-21. The bye week should give this team a chance to get healthy. Marcel Darius is going to be back on that defensive line. They're hoping to have Jerry Hughes ready to go. Robert Woods should be healthy and raring to go for this football game. So this should be a healthier defense. That's the good news. Healthier on both sides of the football. And I think Buffalo, knows that they've got to make a little bit of a run here. They're 4-5. They're not completely out of this thing yet in terms of the wild card chase. I think right now they're flat out playing better football than the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati, you look at what they've done. They're 1-3-1 in their last 5 games, a tie against Washington, and their only win was against the lowly winless Cleveland Browns. That doesn't say much. So even at 2.5, I think Buffalo's worth a bet. Would have been a bigger bet for me at +3 or better, but even at +2.5 right now, I think the Bills still have a chance to win this game outright. Baltimore, Dallas, I think the spot is horrible here for Dallas, but you're not making a lot of money betting against Dallas right now. We said this about Dallas when they played Cleveland. It was a bad spot for them, let down off the Philadelphia overtime win, and they still showed up. They still put the foot down and won that football game. Their offensive line just completely dominated Cleveland. Certainly has the chance to do that here against Baltimore. Baltimore, to me, is not a very good football team. I mean, who's kidding who? I mean, they have not done anything that's overly impressive to me. Now they're playing a very good Dallas team. You worry again about a Dallas letdown following that huge win against Pittsburgh last week. But again, they avoided the letdown against Cleveland. And if they can run the football with Zeke Elliott, Dak Prescott continues to play mistake-free football, this is going to be a team that's probably going to have a chance to win, if not cover this game. Don't like the spot. I'm not going to endorse Dallas this week, but I can't make a case for Baltimore. I just don't think they're very good. So it's a game I'm going to leave alone. Pittsburgh, Cleveland. I've tried to make a case for Cleveland a couple weeks in a row against Dallas and Baltimore, and they're lose both games straight up and against the spread. I think I'm done trying to convince people that the Cleveland Browns have point spread value until they cover a number. I think I can't support them anymore at this point. But Pittsburgh's got issues. Pittsburgh's not making stops on defense. Ben Roethlisberger's been erratic since returning from injury. This should be a game where Pittsburgh gets well, is motivated, is focused, puts their foot down. Certainly have a chance to cover this number, but I'm not rushing to lay 8 on the road with Pittsburgh in a divisional game. That being said, I'm also not rushing to back Cleveland now at this point. So that's another game I would say pass to. Maybe over the total. That total keeps trickling down. It opened 49.5. It's down to 45.5. Cleveland's defense is no good. And if Pittsburgh's offense is, at least avoids turnovers and shooting themselves in the foot with penalties, should be able to put up points. Miami and LA, Jared Goff era begins. I don't know if it matters. I certainly wouldn't downgrade the LA Rams going from Case Keenum to Jared Goff. Everybody says, now you got a rookie quarterback, you got to downgrade the Rams. No, you don't. Case Keenum stinks. Case Keenum is terrible. Case Keenum couldn't do anything to move this offense. He was making bad decisions. There's no downgrade, none, zero. With the quarterback situation here with the LA Rams going from Case Keenum to Jared Goff. Now, that doesn't mean Jared Goff's going to be any better, especially first start here of his NFL career, and a guy that wasn't even good enough in the preseason to knock out Case Keenum for the starting job. But he's no worse than Case Keenum, that's for sure. I'm not back going against Miami right now. It's Dolphins or nothing for me, and even at less than 3, I think they're worth some kind of bet. Ever since Miami got their offensive line healthier, they've ran the football. Ryan Tannehill's making plays in the passing game, making fewer mistakes. The defensive line certainly has been solid with Ndamukong Suh leading that group. And Miami just a flat-out better football team right now. Only way I could bet this game is Miami in this near pick'em price. New England, San Francisco, you can't endorse San Francisco. New England in foul mood off that Sunday night loss to Seattle. You know they're going to want to vent their frustrations out and take it out on a pathetic opponent. They've got that opponent here in San Francisco. I know it's a high number. I know it's a situation where San Francisco did show up and lost a close one to Arizona, their best performance, albeit still in a losing effort in quite some time. But New England's pissed off, and I'm not stepping in front of them, not with a bad San Francisco team on the other side. Philadelphia, Seattle, tough spot for Seattle. You played that tie game with Arizona 3 weeks ago, down to the wire game against New Orleans 2 weeks ago, Buffalo on the Monday night game a couple weeks ago, and then last Sunday night against New England, that tremendous win. They played a great football game. Russell Wilson looks as healthy as he's been all season, making plays escaping the pocket, making plays down the field, throwing the football. He's been great. That being said, I have no interest in laying 6.5 with Seattle. This is a very dubious spot for them off a couple, if not 3 intense down-to-the-wire finishes in a row. Do they run out of gas here? Their defense has been on the field quite a bit in recent weeks. And say what you will about the Philadelphia Eagles, but they're not offensively gifted. Carson Wentz has had his struggles at times. This defense, though, keeps them in a lot of football games. And you look at Philadelphia's losses this year. Lose to Detroit by 1. Lose to Washington by 7. Lose to Dallas by 6. Lose to the Giants by 5. They've been in every game. They haven't lost a game by more than a touchdown this season. They have been a competitive team. They have a solid enough defense with Jim Schwartz and his aggressive schemes. They're paying off for this team. If the Eagles hang around in this game, it would not shock me. It's not a great spot for the Seahawks back home this week. I think the Eagles could hang around in this game. We'll lean to them. Lean to Philadelphia here at plus 6.5 in this one. Sunday Night Football, Green Bay and Washington. I don't really love laying points with Washington, albeit Washington, in a pretty decent spot here against a fading Green Bay team. How many more mulligans is Mike McCarthy going to get? He's been absolutely disastrous with his decision-making, his play calling. There's issues with Green Bay. This is a locker room that is fracturing before our very eyes. I think his days are numbered as far as I'm concerned. Washington, a nice win against Minnesota last week, 26-20. I can't endorse Green Bay. I've got legitimate concerns, not only on the field, but off the field. They're a banged-up team. They've still got a ton of injuries in the secondary. Not for certain that Clay Matthews will be playing, although he is listed as probable, but nevertheless, Green Bay's not a team I have any interest in betting right now until I see something positive out of them. So if I had to bet it, we'd lean to Washington in this game. Probably will be a higher scoring game, too. I don't think either defense is a defense I trust to shut down the opposing offense. So over the total of 50 might be a bet worth making here on Sunday night as well. Monday Night Football, we go down to Mexico for this one. First ever NFL game in Mexico. Houston Texans, Oakland Raiders. This point spread does seem a notch high with Oakland laying 6.5 in this game. Total of 46, but they're playing very good football. And Houston away from home, they've had some tough times, okay? Houston's games away from Houston this year, shut out by New England, lose by 18 at Minnesota, lose by 18 at Denver. One road win this year away from home was at Jacksonville last week, which was a Play of the Week winner for us last week. I gave out Houston as a Play of the Week last week, so they came through, they cashed in, but I'm not sure I'm ready to trust Houston one more time. Houston hasn't lost. Houston does have a decent defense. Brock Osweiler was a little bit better, but he's playing against against a much better team, and Oakland's on a roll right now. You look at this team from a point spread perspective, they're 6-1 straight up their last 7 games, 5-2 against the spread in their last 7 games during that time, playing good football. I don't know if there's a great value, great bargain in backing Oakland here, but I'm not sure Houston's the team I want to go against Derek Carr and this Raiders team with. So in the end, it's not a game I expect to get involved with. Plus, it's the surroundings in Mexico. You don't know how either team is going to handle it. So, fascinating game to watch, but it's not one I expect to have a wager in my pocket on prior to kickoff. All right, let's wrap it up with our play of the week for Week 11 in the National Football League. And we are going to go back to the Buffalo-Cincinnati game. That's the one I'm going to go with here. Or actually, you know what? I had that as a lean. I was going back and forth. What was I was going to use for play of the week? I decided against Buffalo because I wanted +3 or better. We're going to the Chicago Giants game. I have no problem laying 7.5 with the Giants here. I think Chicago's in a world of hurt. The injuries are mounting. Jay Cutler was horrendous. Second straight road game for the Bears with a 2-win football team going nowhere. Defensive injuries. Alshon Jeffrey, their best receiver, suspended. Kyle Long injured on the offensive line, probably their best offensive lineman, maybe their only good offensive lineman on a very shaky, poor Chicago offensive line. Just a cavalcade of issues and problems here for Chicago as they go into New York, and I think they're running into a Giants team that's surging, playing better football. And I think they are in for a long day in the Meadowlands. Let's make it official. The New York Giants, we're taking the G-Men, -7.5, rotation number 458. New York Giants, -7.5 to romp over the Chicago Bears. That's your NFL Week 11 play of the week. All right, that'll wrap up my NFL Week 11 betting preview. I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.